Hello and welcome to the Hembury Books Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Muddett, and I'm the publisher and founder at Hembury Books. And today we have our first in-studio guest, Sarah Susak, who is the author of a new memoir called Youru. And she is here to answer lots of questions about that today. But first, I'm going to read Sarah's bio. Sarah Susak is a full-time working mum and the General Manager of Legal and Corporate Affairs at a leading Australian food company. She is also the author of a new memoir called Yuru, Find the Guru Within You, and the founder of Medi Steady Go, a Vedic Meditation teaching course. To say that health challenges have played a mammoth role in the last 8 years of her life is a grand understatement. In 2017, Sarah was diagnosed with a rare and deadly head and neck cancer. At the time, her baby was only 1.5 years old. She is grateful to be here today to tell us how she got through it all. So thanks a lot for coming on, Sarah.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
What do the words rare and deadly mean to you?
They are very significant words to me. Two words that kind of shone with the brightest light when I got the diagnosis in 2017 that I had a very rare and deadly head and neck cancer. It's called adenoid cystic carcinoma, and I had been having these feelings of electrical pulses in my face and went to get a diagnosis and got misdiagnosed with a pain neuralgia. But after a biopsy and other sort of investigative procedures, they diagnosed me with this rare and deadly head and neck cancer. And the prognosis was not pretty. The doctors said to me that, you know, this is the type of cancer that they can operate on and try and remove and treat with radiation, but it's very, very likely to metastasize quickly, and then you'll die. I had a very,
Terrible.
it was a very terrifying diagnosis. So those words are very significant to me.
And to have a 1.5-year-old baby at the time, the grief must have been just awful.
Yeah, it was pretty hard because we'd just gone through 8 rounds of IVF to get her, and we were so excited. We were just in the happiest period of our life, and 1.5 years old, and I got the diagnosis. So it was extremely terrifying.
And how were the kind of days and weeks after the diagnosis for you?
It's really interesting, and I share the story in my book, but something happened to me when I got the diagnosis. I remember, we talk about Stella. I mean, that was the first word that came into my head when I was diagnosed, just Stella. Stella was just on repeat, and I couldn't handle what the doctor was saying, and so I walked out of the room and I left my poor mum in the room. My husband was with me. I took him with me, and we went into the corridors of the the doctor's surgery that we were at, and I sat for a minute and it was like my mind went into like computerized overdrive, and I had that rainbow wheel of death, and then I just crashed and went black. And it was almost like in that moment, I just made a choice that I was going to accept this diagnosis. There were facts. There was nothing I could do about it. But to hell with their prognosis. That was the part of the story that I had control over. And strangely, I asked my husband to dance. And so we just stood up. It makes me emotional thinking about it. But we just stood up. And my husband does not dance. He hates dancing. And we just danced. And in the book, I kind of share the story that in that dance was where my freedom lay. Like, this was my story. I was going to choose how to react to it. And from that moment on, I just went full scale into, instead of sort of why me, I focused really heavily on what now, and what was I going to do about it? What action was I going to take? And it was the beginning of a long journey.
Wow. And so then what happened in 2024 when the cancer metastasized to your lung?
So they did say that it would do that. I went into remission, I think, for about 7 years. I was thrilled about that. But then I got a metastasis on my right lung of the same cancer, so it wasn't lung cancer. The doctors considered it to be, even though it was horrible to hear, they thought it was a bit of a medical miracle in that there was only one lesion. And when this cancer metastasizes, it usually spreads everywhere. And that's why they said to me, when it metastasizes, it's not a good outcome. So I was thrilled, strangely, that it was just this one lesion. And they took it out. I lost 20% of my lung, but they took it out and I went home, no radio, no chemo. It was pretty good outcome, all things considered. But within a week of going home, I got just symptoms that I just, it still makes me shudder when I think about how it felt. But my entire body was like an esky. Inside my body was freezing and I couldn't feel surfaces with my fingers or my toes. So I took myself to emergency. They told me I was having a panic attack. I was like, I'm not having a panic attack. They sent me home. I went back and I was in emergency for 2 more days. They said, sorry, darling, nothing wrong with you. In the end, I said, you need to admit me. And I lay down in the corridor of the hospital and said, if somebody doesn't see me. And my husband said, by this stage, my eyes were rolling in the back of my head. And then one neurosurgeon came up to me and just sort of tapped me here, there and everywhere and said, emergency, get her to the ICU immediately. And within 4 hours, I was unconscious and I was on life support for a good 4 days. And I woke up completely paralyzed from my neck down. I couldn't breathe on my own. I had a tracheotomy and I had Guillain-Barré syndrome. I'm probably not saying that right, but it's GBS, an autoimmune condition that probably was picked up as a viral infection from the surgery that I had. We'll never know. But they said you'll be in hospital for minimum 12 months. You'll be in ICU minimum 3 months. I was through ICU and out of hospital within 2 months and 7 days because I was like, that's not happening to me. And so I've been out since last July. I had to learn to walk again, swallow again. Yeah, all sorts of things. But yeah, I'm here today. I've, since getting out, launched my book. I've been teaching at Medi Steady Go, absolutely loving life. So yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Extraordinary. Do you remember the actual moment when you decided that you were going to write a book about what you had gone through?
Yeah, I don't know if there was like a specific moment, but apparently I've been told by friends that ever since maybe probably 15 years ago, as long as that time ago, I've been saying I have a book in me. And I do remember saying it throughout my life, but I feel like it was just right story, right time. Like I've always loved writing. I have a blog. I absolutely love writing. But yeah, I remember people saying to me, how did you get through what you've got through and you still seem so happy and positive about life? And I would sort of just go, oh, I don't know. But when I was by myself, I was like, I actually had a strategy. Like I actually did have a way of getting through that. And so I thought, why not put that down in the effort to help others? That was essentially why I decided. So it wasn't a specific moment, but yeah, I thought.
But it had been latent forever.
Yeah, there was a burning desire for me to write. And the book is not just about my cancer experience. It goes right through from the beginning of my life through to now. And so, yeah, there's stories in the earlier part of my life that were also worth telling and, merged into the theme of my book quite well. So
yes, including relationships.
Yeah, relationships, family, job.
Not to blow them up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was like a spiritual guru that said, if you want to know how enlightened you are, go and spend time with your family. You'll quickly learn whether you're chilled or hyped up.
Well, and because your book begins with what happened in your family life that sort of ruptured the family. Do you want to tell us?
Yeah, sure. I was probably in year 6 in primary school. I always go by what year I was in rather than age.
Same.
That's the way that I think. But I think I was in about year 6 when my parents split up. My father had an affair and left my mum with 3 girls. Mum, she's just an absolute powerhouse. She got through that like an absolute trooper. But for some reason, and I think it just has to do with the fact that I'm just a person that has always flocked to the wounded bird. My dad, no one went and lived with my dad. And so I just thought, oh, I love both my parents. I'm going to go live with dad instead of my mum. It ruined my mum. It completely broke her heart. But my dad was with a partner that unfortunately, had some mental health issues and they're still together to this day. But she really tapped into the sensitive part of my nature, and for some reason that will never be explainable, I got separated from my mum and chose not to see her or my sisters for a good 9 years. Like it wasn't until from year 6 until university I didn't see my mum or my sisters, despite her efforts to see me for a really long time. So it was a huge rupture. But yeah, we're back together now, 4 girls, best friends.
Do you think it gave you strength in some ways?
Absolutely. My mum, even though that happened to her, she's still one of the most positive. She's a counsellor at Lifeline. So she's really turned her pain into purpose. And so that resilience and that strength and that positivity, despite going through tough times, that all comes from my mum without a doubt. And also, if what had happened to her and what had happened to me with my family and with cancer had not happened to me, we wouldn't be doing the good things that we're doing, like her doing her counseling. She's so passionate about helping people who have attempted suicide, and me also with Vedic meditation and some of the philanthropic work I've done. We wouldn't have done that had we not gone through that trauma. So yeah, it's definitely turned us into better people.
Yeah, gosh. Could you please tell us about Yuru and the meaning of the word? Because it is, I admire the audacity of having the title of a book that is not in an English dictionary. And for SEO, it's amazing because there's none other. So can you tell us about that?
I know I need everyone's help to make it a real word. Yeah, I'm like pitching to all the dictionary experts out there. But yeah, Yuru, when you actually asked me the question about when did I make the decision to write the book, when I did a course, it was called Exploring the Vedas, and it was exploring this body of wisdom that's come from Hindu traditions. I won't go too much into it, but I was doing this course, and of course they teach you a lot about Sanskrit, and one of the words in Sanskrit is guru.
Yeah.
And guru in Sanskrit means remover of darkness. And when I heard that, I'm like, wow, what a superpower to have, to be able to remove darkness from your life.
Yeah.
I was going through a very dark time, so it had particular meaning for me. And without any conscious awareness, I just kept writing the word Yuru. Guru meaning remover of darkness. I was thinking, wow, I want the power to remove darkness. How am I going to get that? And I got taught meditation, which was a technique that allows you to go within and access that part of who you are that is your true nature and your source, which is your pure consciousness. And from that, I learned that all of the answers that I ever need are already within me. Wow, Yuru. So Yuru just means you are the teacher of yourself. You are the person that is the chief leader and the chief expert and guide in your life. And I started to live a life that was less reliant on people or things outside, and more self-sufficient and more capable of self-healing and leading and guiding myself through life than I was before. Because I think, like most of us, I'd spent a large part of my life, and this is all through my book, looking outside for fulfillment. So if I could get married, I will be happy. If I can have a baby, I will be happy. And the danger of that, of course, is that none of that is assured, and everything out there is constantly changing. None of it's permanent. So if your happiness is tied to things outside of yourself, well, then you're in trouble, because when they change or they get removed from you, what happens to your happiness or your sense of self-identity? So yeah, Yuru is all about finding the happiness within. Yeah.
Because in your book, you even say, like, if your husband, who you adore, left you, you know you're still going to be okay. You'll still be standing, which is a really powerful thing to
Not
say.
that I wouldn't be devastated.
But
my happiness is not tied or dependent on him staying exactly the way he is. And so
it's very brave.
It's really hard. It's easy to say, hard to do. But I'm working on it. Like, I'm not a Yuru by any means yet, but it's my aspiration to become more Yuru than, reliant on guru for sure.
But you had a guru.
I did.
Tell us about your guru.
Yeah, that's kind of, I go through in my book all of the gurus that I've given away my power to over the years, you know, partners, parents, society, beauty, you name it. But my last guru that I was really reliant on was this spiritual guru called Tom Knowles. He's very well known in the Vedic community. He's one of the only white Western male that have been given the title of Maharishi, which means great seer of truth. I think he's had further titles bestowed on him since I met him, but he's just full of wisdom. So I started listening to his podcasts and going to his lectures. And I remember one of the lectures I went to when I first got diagnosed was with him. And I put my hand up, and I was in that bitter stage of why me at that point in time. And I said, why do good people get cancer? I've been good. I've done good things. Why did I get cancer? And he just looked at me very calmly and said, tell me, has everything about the way that you lived your life since you got cancer changed? And I took a second. It was like going through my mind, and I was like, oh my God, yes, it has. And he just smiled and moved to the next question. And at first I was a bit pissed off.
Yeah.
I was like, hang on, are you saying that are you saying that I caused my own cancer? I really it was like a, Oprah aha moment when I was like, wow, what he's saying to me is, if everything about the way you lived your life before you got cancer was fine and didn't contribute to your cancer, why then did you change all of it after you got cancer? So what I eat, what I put in my body, what I put on my body, what I prioritize, the level of stress I'm willing to tolerate, what I drink, all alcohol, all of these things, they went after I got cancer diagnosis.
Yeah.
So I found that a more of an empowering position to come from, because if I wasn't just a victim of bad luck or bad genes, then I could do something about it to prevent it coming back, or to prevent getting sick again in the future. And so, he was just saying, take personal responsibility. It's tough to hear, but it's not untrue. And I really appreciate that. So I just got more into that. I learnt Vedic meditation from students of him, did all of his courses to acquire the wisdom that goes with the technique that I teach. And it was life-changing. But his teaching, the one thing that he would say is, if you become dependent on me, then I have failed as your teacher, because the teaching of the Vedas is self-sufficiency, self-sovereignty, and recognizing that you have all the power within you already. So I found that just thrilling. Like I said, a superpower, and I just got deep into it.
Wow.
Yeah.
What were you told before you had surgery?
Oh, I was told all sorts of horrible things. Obviously, the diagnosis was just grim. It was, you're going to die in the next 5 years. And I'm like, that, I refuse to accept it. I was told I would have a lifelong struggle with my face. And I have to say that has become true. I've had infections, osteoradionecrosis, which meant my bone that they took my leg bone to replace my jaw, and then they radiated it, which made it extremely fragile and brittle. So bone pieces come out through my mouth. I can't open my jaw very wide, so I can't eat things. I can't smell, taste. I'm deaf in one ear. There's lots of ongoing issues with my face. Obviously, no teeth. That's been a bit of a drama, because I can't have dentures or implants because of the fragility of the bone. But they also told me a lot about how I would look. The words train wreck were used.
Really?
Yeah, it was meant to be open face surgery, and they were going to take my eye, one nostril. But in the heat of the moment, the surgery was 19 hours, so it was mammoth. They decided that they could go in through my mouth. So they cut out half my palate and used my leg to replace my palate, and I've still got leg hairs growing in my mouth. I saw it on the news.
On the UK news, yeah.
I thought, wow, that's the headline.
Yeah.
But it draws you in. But yeah, they told me I would look it would be extremely difficult for me the way I looked, and I'm relatively happy.
Yeah.
Other than the teeth, I feel like they did a fantastic job. So
how did you feel? How did that, in terms of your priorities, staying alive is number one?
Number one. I said, do what
whatever it's going to take.
I just want to.
But it would have been scary.
It was scary. I do a chapter in my book about beauty and the danger of relying on your outside looks for, your sense of self-worth, because one, you'll age and it will change. And we know, you can just look around the media and advertising, all of the messages that we get about what we need to do to make ourselves look younger and feel better. I was never one, I never thought I was particularly ugly, but I never also thought I was wham bam, oh my God, you're supermodel. So I was never really reliant too much on my looks for my sense of self-worth. So people have said to me, how do you go into corporate meetings and into the world? And it's never really bothered me. Yes, I've
You just walk in through the door? Is that what you're
like, and they weren't, I don't think they were like trying to say, I think they were more just, I don't know if I could do that. Like, it was more genuine fascination with, you seem so confident. And I just decided very quickly, just own it. Don't cover your mouth when you laugh, or, just own it. This is what I look like. It's same as if somebody doesn't have an arm, or this is what I look like. Yes, I get upset when I get stares or lingers, or little kids constantly ask me, which can be uncomfortable for Stella, my own daughter. Yeah. But more than not, I'm okay with it. Yeah.
And I guess you also feel you're being an advocate through your strength, is that we don't all look the same. Yeah. And that, if we don't cover up what we're not happy about, then hopefully people will change a bit.
Yeah. And feel good about the truth that beauty comes from the inside.
Yeah.
It really does.
You had time off social media though, didn't you? Because you kind of debuted your book cover.
Yeah.
Why did you go off social media?
I went off social media, if I'm remembering this correctly, before I got sick. So I just went off it because I was an anxious person a long time ago. I was on all sorts of anti-anxiety. I'm not anymore, thanks to my meditation. But I was. I've grown up an anxious person, and I was an anxious person from stuff that happened earlier in my life. And so I just went off it for the anxiety that it was causing me, the comparisonitis, and and I also saw a lot of my friends that were posting about how great their lives were, but I knew them personally, and I knew what horrible lives they were having, and it's not an insult to them, but I just thought, wow, this is really damaging. They're not seeing the true side of who you are. And I just decided to go off it. I was off it for about 5 years, but when I got sick and I was in hospital, I possibly was just high on opioids and decided, but everyone kept saying, share your story.
Yeah.
And that's when I started it up again. Yeah. So now I'm using it for good, and I feel good about it.
Yeah, you absolutely are. Do you feel now that you could get through just about anything?
It's funny. I do feel that. I had a Vedic astrologer that told me when I went and saw him that I was born with a superpower of resilience, and all of these things that have been happening to me were to signal to me that I wasn't using my superpower for good in the world. So sometimes they explain to me that nature needs to swoop in with the wrecking ball to push you into your purpose. They call it Dharma in Sanskrit. It means, what is my personal role in the evolution of life? And they said yours was to teach people about resilience. It gives me goosebumps.
I've got about it too, yeah.
And there's a beautiful quote that I remember reading that always resonated with me, and when they said it, I'm like, ding ding, like it was, I assigned you this mountain so that you could help others know how to move it. And so they were saying that is what's happened to you. That's why this is happening to you. You were living this life of just corporate alpha female, top executive, fly, do. There's other stuff you need to be doing as well, and you need to be helping others. And so, that was what they said to me. And I started Medi Steady Go, kept my full-time job, but, and that's still the case, but I started Medi Steady Go, and I'd called it Medi Steady Go because I wanted to teach people the technique that I've learned to meditate, steady yourself, get yourself into that really calm, strong, foundational state so that you can go back out into the world and take good action or take right action. And so, I feel like the combination of that, whatever I was born with, whatever I was taught by my mum, and then also my meditation practice has really put me in a good place I don't think there's anything that I couldn't overcome.
Amazing. And you teach meditation, don't you?
I do. Yeah. I'm so excited to do that. I do it once a month in person, and I also teach online now because I've been teaching people in Hong Kong, the UK,
Amazing.
Turkey. It's been fantastic. So I've just decided to teach in both methods.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and I do it once a month. So all of those details are on my website, and it's a passion of mine for sure.
Wonderful. And what are your goals for your book?
Oh, I've got a few. When I started to write it, I think imposter syndrome was big for me. I think, there's a humility I think that, most people have where they just think, well, my story's not that special. Who am I to write a story and think that people are going to want to read it? But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, there's actually a lot of commonalities. It's not that I'm special or unique. It's actually that I'm just like everybody else going through these major health challenges. Cancers obviously impact so many people, but then health challenges generally do. I just thought, rather than, can I write this book? It became kind of, am I willing to do it? Am I willing to do it in service of others? And that was a big motivator. Everything sort of shifted from me then. But the goal of the book really is if I can get it into the hands of one person and they can use it to get through something particularly challenging, then tick. Yeah. And also if I can get more people meditating, tick, tick. Tick, tick, tick. I would love to get more people meditating. So I hope I've had a few people put it down and say, I want what you're on. What are you doing? And I say, I'm meditating. Come and learn. So that's a big motivator in writing the book for sure.
You've already had really good publicity. Can you tell us about that? In the UK last weekend, it was everywhere. Amazing outlets. Tell us how it happened.
Oh, I was so shocked when that happened. I literally, because again, like where I started with, as if anyone would want to hear my story, to get all that coverage in the UK that I got recently. We haven't started the Australian media campaign. That was an accidental benefit that I got. Nicole Webb, book Publicity, you know, I can't recommend her enough. But I got led to her. Was it through you? Or
It may have been.
yeah, so I went to
I always
Nicole.
recommend her.
Yeah, she was amazing. Obviously, so deeply passionate about authors like you are. And she got a contact from one of her media contacts saying, I'm looking for stories on rare cancers. What are the chances?
Wow.
And she's like, well, I just happened to have someone. So I did an interview, shared some pictures, and it went wildfire across the UK press.
Yeah, you had what, Daily Mirror?
Daily Mirror, The Sun, all these other newspapers.
They
It was on
published it,
Yahoo
yeah.
News, and I've got a couple of magazines that now want to interview me. So I'm thrilled about that. And we're about to start the Australian media campaign next. So who knows what's
That's
going to happen. But
really exciting because
Yeah.
you can really now, and I did not put you in contact with Nicole, so I can't take the credit
oh,
because it was just a coincidence that
Oh.
Nicole, yes,
Oh,
and then we
okay.
were in contact.
somebody did. Whoever
Somebody-
it was, thank you.
Yes, yes.
So yeah.
But
Great.
that she can really elevate how many people will hear about your
Yeah.
story, and so that will be amazing.
Yeah. If it does good for the world,
What's your release date?
it's the 2nd of June.
It's really close.
really close.
So pre-orders are open.
Pre-orders are open on my website. I've got links to all the places you can buy.
Amazing. What has been the most challenging aspect of becoming an author?
Definitely the imposter syndrome, but I overcame that by, and I had a lot of people say to me, don't write it for an audience, just write it for yourself. And I also just wrote it for my daughter because I thought, how great would it be for her to have catalogue to pick up one day when she's 18? How did mummy get through that crisis? 'Cause
Yeah.
she knows I've gone through it. So writing it for her, like just writing it for someone rather than, oh God, will everybody love this? Like, that's how I
Yeah,
kind of
that's
overcame
beautiful.
that. But then also just the technical aspects. And I know you know this because I rang you and got all the answers, thank God. I was in a total overwhelm by
It's complicated. Yeah.
self-publishing is really complicated if you don't have support. So I would highly recommend anyone who thinks they can do it themselves to go and see someone like yourself to get the support, because that technical aspect, writing it was easy for me.
Oh, so you
Yeah.
didn't have a writing coach?
No,
That part was
writing
fine.
was easy.
Yeah.
I went into a hotel in Bondi for week-long periods because I couldn't do it at home.
Really? Amazing.
And I would just blow it out. I reckon I wrote it in 8 weeks. The writing just came out. The editing was very tough, though.
Editing can be grueling, can't it?
Yeah. So I did get, because I didn't know about you at the time. So I had a publishing deal from the UK and they went under. But I used Rachel Ramekers, who's now a self-publishing consultant in the UK, but
Right.
she was my editor. So I
Okay.
used her as my editor.
Okay.
And she was fantastic, but it was a long process.
Yeah.
And then, the self-publishing, that was the biggest challenge for me. But
Yeah. But now you're flying.
Yeah.
You are so sorted
yes.
and it's going to do so well.
Yeah,
and I feel very lucky because I got you first. I got the scoop in Australia.
It's been so nice. I can't thank you enough. That was the game changer for me, that conversation.
Yeah. And it was just really, it was nice to talk to you. And I was like, oh, you should come on the podcast.
Yeah. No, it's
So,
been awesome.
so I'm excited for you.
Thank you.
So thanks a lot for coming on, Sarah.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.